Welcome back. Wednesday, May 6th. This is the last new lesson of the week. I hope your week has gone well for you, and I hope that you've contacted me if you've had any questions about any of the previous lessons for this week. Remember, all quizzes are due tomorrow. For me, officially, you have until noon on Friday, but I want you to try to stay on top of that, preferably get them done the day that they're assigned. That way, they don't pile up for you at the end of the week. We're going to finish up with hopefully a slightly shorter lesson today. It's the last section that we have to talk about with the solar system, and that is other objects in the solar system. We've talked about the inner planets, we've talked about the outer planets, we've talked about moons a little bit, mentioned dwarf planets, although because we're not together, it's a little bit more difficult for me to uh, get a lot of that information to you. But we're going to finish up by talking about comets, meteors, and asteroids, the other things that are cruising around in our solar system. And so we're going to start off with the first of those, and that is a comet. And here's what I want you to think about with a comet. I want you to think dirty snowball. Dirty snowball cruising around the sun. All right, so comets are made of ice, uh, and other small rocks and dust particles and those kinds of things. So here's the deal. When a comet, being a dirty snowball, gets close enough to the sun, what do you think happens to that frozen ice? Well, of course, it starts to melt and eventually it turns to water vapor and turns into a gas. And when that happens, we can see a tail of water vapor coming off from that comet. I drew a pretty picture right here, although it appears to be difficult to see. Um, but this shows the sun and a comet going around it. And the thing to remember about comets and their tail is that the tail always points away from the sun because the sun basically forces that material, pushes that material off of the comet and away from the sun itself. All right, so that's what a comet is. It's a dirty snowball. Now, where do those comets come from? They come from something called the Oort cloud. The Oort cloud surrounds the solar system out past the orbit of Pluto. All right. It's also a place where um, scientists are looking at other larger objects that are out there that may actually be dwarf planets that live out in the Oort cloud based on the definition of a dwarf planet. So, the Oort cloud, all of these dirty snowballs are these comets that are out beyond that orbit of Pluto. But here's the deal sometimes gravity pulls them together, they crash into each other, there's a lot of moving parts out there, and sometimes some of them get kicked into and across the orbits of the planets. And so it's possible, and it was very possible, and actually happened quite often early in the solar system, is that the comets crashed into planets. In fact, that's one place that scientists believe the Earth got its liquid water from, were from comets crashing into the Earth. And of course, they vaporize, you get water vapor, eventually it cools, it falls down as rain. So, comets, very important, very cool. Back in the day, if people saw a comet, they typically believed that something really, really bad was about to happen. So they were kind of harbingers to these hugely important and usually negative events in the past. Whether they had any real connection to that or not is totally up to you, all right, and up to speculation. So, there are some examples. Here's a picture of what a comet might look like. I've seen a couple of comets. I saw this comet myself, and what they look like. You can see the tail of the comet always pointing away from the sun. You see them in the sky, they're pretty neat. And I'm going to show you some sources that you could use to look for when you might be able to see some of these known comets. All right. Um, Here we've got a dust tail, an ion tail, coma, and then the nucleus of the comet. This is the dirty snowball portion of it itself. And the sun melting it and shooting off these ions and this dust and ice off of it. So that's the structure of a comet. The next type of other object in the solar system are meteors. And we've got meteors, meteoroids, meteorites, and kind of what's what, right? So we're going to kind of go through that. First of all, the Earth is pelted by lots and lots and lots and lots of these every day. All right. Most of them are really, really small. Sometimes they can be really, really big, which you can see on this picture right here. This is a picture of Meteor Crater in Arizona. This was thought to have struck the Earth about 50,000 years ago. This is a crater that I have seen for myself. Here are some pictures that I took of Meteor Crater. This is actually some little shacks down here, and it's about a mile across. If you take a look at it, here's a kind of a bigger view of it. Pretty impressive stuff. That a space rock traveling at immense speeds, big enough to make it through our atmosphere without breaking up and blowing up in the atmosphere, slams into the Earth and makes a hole like that. Right? Obviously, if that happened today, that would be it could be a pretty disastrous impact depending upon where it hit. Pay no attention to the young children in the picture. These are now graduating seniors and going to be sophomores. So you can see this was a little while ago. All right. But Meteor Crater, very cool. If you ever get out to northern Arizona, I highly recommend that you check it out. All right. These meteors, when they travel through the atmosphere, so let's talk about the definitions of those. So a meteor, and I'm just going to try to find exactly what it says here so that we don't mix those up. A meteoroid that burns up in the atmosphere is called a meteor. So meteoroids are cruising around out there. If they come in contact with the Earth's atmosphere, a lot of times people call those things shooting stars. All right. That's what a shooting star is. It's a meteor. A meteoroid that interacts with the Earth's atmosphere and burns up in the atmosphere. A lot of times those things are dust size, not very big at all, but they're traveling at huge speeds and hitting the atmosphere, and it creates heat and it burns them up. And that's what we see as a shooting star or a meteor. A meteorite is what you call it if it actually makes it all the way through the atmosphere and slams into the Earth. Then we get a meteorite. All right. There are lots of scientists that go around and try to find meteorites. It's something that I would love to have in my collection. And there are some places that are easier to find them than others. In fact, Antarctica is a great place to find meteorites because there's very little weathering that takes place there. And in the summer, you get melting, and these scientists walk around and actually are able to find some of these meteorites. Here's something else that's really cool. They have actually found chunks of Mars and chunks of the moon that have fallen to the Earth and have been protected here long enough from weathering and erosion for us to find them. So that's kind of cool. Imagine walking around, hey, there's a chunk of Mars. Wow, that's pretty neat. So, meteoroid, cruising around out in space. Meteor, when it hits the atmosphere and burns up. Meteorite, when it actually gets to the surface. All right. And one of the last things to talk about are the asteroids. And the asteroids, think of them as kind of just a ring of rocks of all varying sizes, from extremely small to actually dwarf planet size. There are a couple of dwarf planets that have been found in the asteroid belt. Most of these asteroids live between Mars and Jupiter in the asteroid belt. Just like the comets, collisions can happen, and it can kick these asteroids into other orbits, and eventually some of them can actually interact with the Earth's orbit. And I'm going to show you a site that tracks those near Earth asteroids here in just a minute. All right. Asteroids hold a lot of promise. They are dangerous, I'll give you that, especially large ones that are headed towards the planet. But they're also full of rare elements. And in fact, it's been said that an average size asteroid actually contains trillions with a T of dollars worth of rare elements. Might be gold, might be silver, platinum, lots and lots of other very valuable mineral resources or elements. So there's actually some, we've us and I think Japan have sent probes to actually intercept asteroids, and we've actually landed on asteroids. And there's actually, I think the Japanese probe actually fired a bullet into the asteroid and filmed what it looked like when it hit so they could tell what it was made out of. So, some very cool work is being done to study asteroids and what they might hold for us. All right. Here, so that's the end, by the way. That's the end of the chapter. I'm going to finish this conversation about asteroids, meteors, and comets by showing you this. This is from the Jet Propulsion Lab at NASA, and it actually tracks near Earth asteroids, near Earth close approaches. And so this is kind of up to date. We've got today, and we've got tomorrow, and Friday, and Saturday, how close these asteroids are going to approach. You can look on here and see the distance, which is a little bit hard for you to figure out. But LD stands for lunar distance. All right, so that's the distance from the Earth to the moon. And so it's a multiple of that. So here today, this one is going to be come by us just twice the distance from the Earth to the moon, which is, it's close, but it's not close enough that we have to really worry about it. You can also see the size of these asteroids. 16 meters, right? Not very big, to 35 meters. That's maybe about the size of the Bessie Allen Gymnasium, all right? All the way up to 210 to 470 meters. And looking forward, you can see some others. Looking backwards, you can see that there are some even a kilometer or 2 kilometers or up to 4 kilometers wide that are discovered. But here's an interesting thing that I want you to look at, and that is the name of them. So these that are 220 or 2020 HZ6 or 220 HL or 220, that means these things were literally found this year. We didn't know about them until just very recently. So what that tells us is there are a lot of near-Earth asteroids. Some of them could intersect our orbit. So that's why it's hugely important. We have lots of people and lots of private people with telescopes and computers that are searching for these near-Earth asteroids, because the feeling is the sooner we can find them and know our, maybe our danger, the safer that we can hopefully keep people on Earth. All right. So with that, that was the solar system in 3 lessons. Did I cover it all? Absolutely not. Did I hopefully cover the big stuff? I hope so. I did the best that I think I could do under those circumstances. Now what I need from you is your best, and I need you to do your best on the quiz that's associated with this lesson. Make sure that you've done all 3 quizzes for the week, that you've done your best on those. You get those into Google Classroom so that I can give you your passing grade for the week. If you have any questions, you need to contact me, email me, shoot me a message, or request a Google meeting, and I would be happy to help you with any of this stuff. So With that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend, and I will be talking to you soon. Take care.